Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. The Forbidden City in Beijing, the Imperial Palace of the Ming and Qing dynasties, is not only a masterpiece of traditional Chinese architecture but also one of the 5 great palaces in the world. When visiting the Forbidden City, have you noticed an interesting phenomenon? This massive palace doesn't have any chimneys. Some may wonder, with such a magnificent structure, wouldn't it be awkward to have chimneys everywhere? In fact, this isn't just an issue of aesthetics. We must remember that in ancient times, there was no liquefied gas, natural gas, or electric stoves. There was no centralized heating system like we have today, provided by heating companies. People had to cook their own meals and find ways to heat their homes in the winter. Common households typically used firewood, and sometimes even straw or dry leaves, to cook. To meet the demand for firewood, there were many people in ancient times who specialized in cutting wood for sale or collecting and processing old wood into firewood. For example, there used to be a large firewood factory near Xidan in Beijing, which was named Chopwood Hutong because of its firewood production. Additionally, in the past, most homes had heated brick beds, or kong. There was a stove in the outer room, and it was an essential part of every home. Do you know why people in China have the custom of worshipping the kitchen god on the 23rd day of the 12th month of the lunar calendar? It's because every household used to honor the kitchen god. During winter, cooking would warm up the kong, so people could both eat and keep warm. Beneath the kong was a flue, which would carry heat up to the bed, warming it. At the same time, smoke from the flue would be vented outside, eventually leaving through the roof's chimney. As a result, at mealtime, smoke would rise from the rooftops of almost every house. Which is why Chinese poetry often describes, "the smoke rises again," as twilight descends upon the earth. While the emperor, residing in the Forbidden City, was the ruler of all and revered as the highest authority, he, too, was human. In winter, he would still feel cold, and he would get hungry if he didn't eat. Moreover, the Forbidden City had a large number of eunuchs, maids, and other palace staff. During the Qianlong period, it's said that there were as many as 3,000 eunuchs in the palace, and when you add in the emperor's family and the maids, the number of people becomes enormous. So, how was food prepared and heating managed in the palace? Did the palace not need to cook food or provide warmth in winter? Is it true that the Forbidden City doesn't have chimneys? Now, let's reveal the reason why the Forbidden City didn't have chimneys. First of all, cooking in the palace was unavoidable, and cooking meant making fire. In ancient China, people often said, "The south burns firewood, while the north burns coal." Although coal has been used for thousands of years in China, people discovered coal as early as 6 or 7,000 years ago. Its widespread use for heating and cooking began around the Sui and Tang dynasties, especially for industrial and metallurgical purposes. As for its use in daily life, it probably became popular in the Ming dynasty. According to some historical records, when Zhu Di was still the Prince of Yan, his father, Zhu Yuanzhang, was distrustful of him and constantly required him to report on his situation. Zhu Di once told his father, "In Beijing, food is cooked in clay pots, and firewood is measured in dou, a traditional Chinese unit of measurement." Zhu Yuanzhang was surprised and thought, "Beijing is really that difficult, they need to measure firewood in dou?" This led him to relax his vigilance, thinking that Beijing was indeed in a dire situation. However, when Zhu Di mentioned measuring firewood in dou, he was actually referring to coal, not regular firewood. Coal, unlike firewood, couldn't be bundled together, so it was usually measured by dou. In fact, coal wasn't widely used in the Forbidden City until the Mid-Ming dynasty, during the Jiaqing period. By the Qing dynasty, coal use had become common, especially for cooking. After all, with so many people needing to eat, it was no small matter. At that time, the coal used in the Forbidden City was mostly anthracite, with the most popular being the Taishi coal from Ningxia. This coal had low sulfur and phosphorus content, burned almost smokeless, and had high calorific value, making it ideal for the imperial palace. Its high quality and shiny, hard appearance earned it the nickname black gold. However, because the coal came from a distant region, transportation costs were high, so it wasn't used extensively in the palace. Secondly, in the Fangshan district of Beijing, coal is also produced, known as Z coal or red coal. There is a place in Fangshan called Hongmeichang, Red Coal Yard, which was one of the distribution centers for red coal in the past. Additionally, there is small furnace coal produced in Mentugu, which was mainly used in the imperial kitchens of the royal palace. After coal was mined from the western Beijing areas, it was transported into the capital, then delivered to the palace through Fuqingmen. The gate of Fuqingmen would have plum blossoms painted on it. This is because the pronunciation of May, plum, is similar to May, coal, symbolizing that coal carts would enter and exit through this gate. The common characteristics of these three types of coal are, they do not emit smoke, do not explode, and leave no slag. After burning, the coal ash is white and light, like paper scraps. In the past, there were large imperial kitchens in the royal palace, and each palace also had its own smaller kitchen. The kitchen stoves were specially made, different from those in ordinary homes, and they all used smokeless coal. As a result, the palace did not require particularly large chimneys to vent smoke. There are several benefits to using smokeless coal. First, it has a high heat output, making it very convenient to use. Second, it is safer, as it does not leave any sparks after burning. And the coal ash does not reignite, thus reducing the risk of fire from smoldering ashes. Finally, because the kitchens in the palace used smokeless coal, they did not produce large amounts of smoke like those in ordinary homes, preventing the entire palace from being filled with smoke. However, with the dining need solved, what about heating? The ancient imperial palaces had several heating methods. Building design: the palace walls in the Forbidden City were tall and thick, effectively blocking the northwest wind. Additionally, the walls and roofs of the buildings were also very thick, which allowed the buildings to remain warm in winter and cool in summer. Stoves: despite the thick walls and roofs of the Forbidden City, some large buildings, especially office areas, would still feel chilly, particularly those with poor lighting. To keep warm, the emperor and the concubines would use hand stoves and foot stoves. These were similar to modern hand warmers, some filled with water, others with charcoal, and could be placed on the feet or held in the hands. Charcoal basins: charcoal was the most common heating fuel in the imperial palace. Since the Forbidden City was built with a brick and wood structure, it was highly susceptible to fire, and there had been incidents of the palace being destroyed by fire in history. Therefore, the emperor placed great importance on fire prevention and strictly prohibited the use of open flames. Underfloor heating: don't think underfloor heating is a modern invention. It existed in the Forbidden City as early as the Ming dynasty, although it was then called dike, earth stove. The ancient underfloor heating used charcoal, unlike today's systems. Some important palaces in the Forbidden City had a fire channel underneath the floor, known as the Dilong. By pouring charcoal into the stove, the heat from the fire channel would circulate and warm the floor tiles, thus providing heating. The fire channel also extended underneath the bed, allowing the emperor and the concubines to enjoy a warm bed while sleeping. Some curious people might ask, didn't the fire channels in the palace require chimneys? According to historical scholars, the answer is that the palace used special imperial coal and imperial charcoal for cooking and heating. These charcoals, called Hongluo charcoal, red thread charcoal, were made from high-quality hardwood. although the exact type of wood is unknown today. What is clear is that they produced high heat, emitted little smoke, and did not leave a strong odor when burned. The charcoal basins used indoors would not cause irritation or smoke. Moreover, when using underfloor heating, the charcoal intake was located outdoors, in an area known as the fire pit. The eunuchs who managed the fire channels operated them outdoors, which both prevented open flames from being seen indoors and minimized smoke. Though the smoke was minimal, it was not completely absent. To ensure the fire channel worked properly, ventilation was necessary. Without ventilation, the oxygen inside the channel would not support the burning of the charcoal. Thus, the Forbidden City did not have completely smokeless chimneys. In fact, due to the use of smokeless coal and charcoal, the amount of smoke was very low, making regular chimneys unnecessary. However, at the end of the fire channels, ventilation holes were still installed to ventilate and release any minor smoke. Today, the underfloor heating and the outdoor fire pit remain in the Forbidden City. If you have the opportunity to visit, you can see these ancient heating facilities and perhaps even find the hidden ventilation holes to see how the Forbidden City cleverly used these special chimneys. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.